Good morning. Happy Friday. Wow, guys. This is going to be a really big trauma dump. Warning you now, I'm going to be trauma dumping hardcore. Okay. So, you guys know, a lot of you guys who watch me know about my shitty ass childhood. But I'm stuck like this. I feel stuck this way. I don't feel like I can ever get over it. I've tried and it doesn't go away. I'm constantly thinking about it. But when I was a little girl, I was taking care of my nephews and my nieces and my siblings also. My mom, my dad, my older sister were all addicts. My dad was in prison for most of my life, in and out. And he would go to San Quentin and go to friggin', what's the other prisons he's been in? Man, I can't think of them right now, but all kinds of places, all over California and all over, like friggin'. So my dad was in prison a lot growing up. Well, my mom and my sister were both on methamphetamine, and it was just not great, right? I ended up on substances, and I ended up having my first child at 14, which is crazy. I mean, absolutely crazy. And I was not only, like, pregnant at 14, but I was on methamphetamine at 14, my whole pregnancy. Like, only went to the 5th grade, didn't know about anything, never went to the doctors or the dentist, not at all throughout my pregnancy. I never went to the dentist. I did not go there until I was in foster care, ever in my life. I didn't have proper care. I wasn't taught about things that normal children are taught about, and so I just got really messed up by it. But the long story is that my sister's kids I was taking care of, and my mom's kids I was taking care of. My little siblings, I was like Mommy Jamie, and they would literally, everybody would say like, oh my gosh, she's such a little mommy. Like, no, it wasn't funny. You know, I'd feed them, take care of them, change their diapers, bathe them, everything. So much so that my niece, A, literally told me, Thea, I used to think that you were my mom and my mom was my Thea. And that's my reality. So my sister had my niece, S, and unfortunately, I was taking care of S, right? But unfortunately, my cousin, she had Turner syndrome and she couldn't have kids. She knew my sister was very, very bad on methamphetamine, her and my Thea, and they used to tell me when I was pregnant of R, Jamie, let us have her, please, Jamie, let us have her, we'll pay you, you know. And I was like, I was dumb, but I wasn't that dumb, and I was like, I could never sell you my baby. I was like, no money. They asked me how much money, 10,000, would 10,000 be good? And I was like, no amount of money would ever make me want to sell you my baby. Like, but sadly, that didn't work for my sister. They knew my sister was so out of it, and my aunt continued to get her high, so high to be able to buy my niece, and she did. She got my niece. She did. So once they took my niece away, and my niece was like 2 years old, that killed me because I took care of her. She was like my baby too, you know? And it was really, really hard on me. Well, then my dad, he had 3 kids from my stepmom, and I was all raised around them, and they got taken away from CPS, and CPS adopted them out, and I never got to see them again. And that was really hard for me too, you know? So then my mom had 6 kids, and that's important too. My mom and dad both had 6 kids. My mom, 6 different men. My dad was 3 different women. But this is important patterns because this is how I am, and this is why. You know, I mean, some people say, oh, don't blame them or get over it or whatever. Well, this is my reality. That was my reality, you know. I followed in my mom and dad's path a lot, and it is very sad, but now I'm 37, and now looking back, you guys, a lot of things make sense, because now that I'm an adult, I'm looking back and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you know, this is why this happened, and this is why this is going like this. Dude, that is why, like, this was what I was taught. This is what was normal for me. These things were normal for me, you know? So when my brother and sisters got ripped away and adopted out, you know, that was normal. CPS, being a part of our family, was normal in my family. We didn't get taken away from my mom too much. We did 2 times, but she got us back somehow. And we would run from CPS. Every time they'd come, we would move. We would move and we would leave the town. We would leave. We would be in Fresno. Well, we would leave Fresno and we'd go to Woodland. We would be in Woodland and we'd leave Woodland and we'd go to Dixon. We'd be in Dixon and we'd leave Dixon and we'd go to fucking Palermo. We would leave. We lived so many different places. This is important because, you know, now that this is going on in my life with my life, like, I am doing what I was taught, and this is what I know. Now, I am trying my hardest to break patterns, but there are things that have happened that I can't change. So when I had my boys, my daughter had gotten adopted out. I was 14 in foster care. I did everything that they asked. I jumped through every hoop. But from the get-go, the foster mom said she wanted to adopt my daughter. And so from the get-go, they never planned on reunification with my daughter. But I didn't know that. Reading the CPS papers, it literally says that in the CPS papers. When my daughter got adopted out at 16, I went and met a boy and had sex unprotected, and I got pregnant again. And, you know, in my mind, I was very young, and I thought, oh, well, I'm going to have another baby to replace the baby I lost, because I didn't know that wasn't what, I did not know that that's not how it worked. So I got sober, and I had my son, and my son changed my life. And I realized, like, obviously another baby will never replace another baby, and it doesn't work like that, and I did realize that. But when I had my son, I ended up, it's a real long story, but I ended up getting pregnant with my other son, and I ended up having 2 boys, 19 years old, ended up being in this relationship with somebody who was the love of my life, so much so that I would have done anything for him. He wanted me to have an abortion with my son, and I said no. And my mom, thank God, my mom told me, Jamie, you don't have to do this, because I almost did. Because I was so dumb, like, and young. And I was like, I don't want him to leave me. I love him so much. And my mom was like, Jamie, are you stupid? You love him or your son? She didn't say son, but you love him or your baby. You can always get another man, but you'll never have another child. And I was like, okay, you're right. And so I remember my mom was with us, and this is how my baby's dad was. He would say, oh, Rose, shut the fuck up, Rose. You're so stupid. Quit feeding your daughter lies. Now you're trying to make her keep the baby. He did not want me to have my son, but I said, no, I'm gonna keep this baby. I'm gonna keep this baby. And he was like, oh, well, you know, no. His mom wasn't supportive of me also, and I was staying with his mom because my mom kicked me out. As soon as I got pregnant, when I went to my sister's, where me and my mom lived, my mom had all my stuff packed in a duffel bag and put it outside in front of the house and said, you figure shit out on your own. I'm done with you. I was 16 years old, just got out of the foster system, had nowhere to go, had nobody, didn't know shit, didn't go to school, didn't know about nothing, and I had to stay with my baby daddy because I didn't have nowhere to go. I was so fucking scared. I didn't know what to do. I knew he didn't want this baby, and I did, and I didn't know what to do. So I went and I stayed with his mom, and his mom let me sleep in her little studio apartment and on A Street. And I remember sleeping on the ground or whatever on the little mattress, and his mom would come home from work and she'd be doing her methamphetamine, and one time it went missing and she was like, and she found it, and it was this whole shit show, and it was crazy because his mom and my mom were both addicts. That's how we bonded. Well, one day I was laying down and A came home and he kicked me in my stomach. He broke the window to his mom's punched the window, because that's how the doorknob would, got in. Broke the window, came in, kicked me in my stomach, was beating the shit out of me. His mom called the cops on him, started fighting her too. And I knew at that moment that was not a good situation, but I was like, oh, he loves me, that's why he's doing this. But I was just young and I didn't know any better. So I ended up going through with it though, and having my son, and having yet another son. Had both my boys. I went to college, medical billing and coding, which was really hard to do because remember, I'd never been in school. And they're like, never? And I was like, never. Like, I only went to grade school. I did try to go to some school in foster care for like 7th and 8th and 9th, but I didn't really go because I didn't know anything, so I couldn't do any of the work, so I was so behind. So anyways, I did go to the college though, and they made it work. They made it work, and they got me in, and I did the college, and I didn't like that after all. It was like mostly desk work, which I realized I didn't really like doing that kind of thing. I wanted to be around people, and so then I went and I got my CNA, and I did like Alzheimer's and mental dementia and mental health, like, memory care, and I realized I really loved doing that. So then I worked with hospice, and I loved that. So I would be working 16-hour shifts and coming home and taking care of my boys and busting my butt, and I did good. And I loved working, and I loved being a mom. I loved it so much, taking care of my boys. And I just remember me and their dad would fight so much. He was controlling, he's abusive, and he still is till this day. Calling me names, derogatory names, the N-word, all kinds of bad things, cheating on me, addiction to things that he shouldn't have been addicted to. And it was really hard because I didn't know anybody. He was my first love, and I loved him so much, and I just wish things could have went differently. But with the boys, I tried really hard to be a good mom. You don't understand. Things that are normal for other people weren't normal for me, and I never ever learned it. So I didn't know how to do certain things like feeding them and taking care of them. I did not have that. And you don't know how to do things if you've never had it, and I did never have it. Having electricity and water and those things, I did not have that. So I did not know how to fucking function as a person. So I didn't have that shit. And I really tried hard to give the boys a different life. I didn't want them to see me drinking or on substances, and I didn't. I was sober. I didn't use any methamphetamine, and I would drink once in a while with their dad, and that was really bad. Alcohol is not for me. And I tried so hard to give the boys a good life, but it was really hard because I was so young, and I didn't know how to be a mom at all. I didn't know how to be a mom, not even a little bit. And I just remember thinking, I'm going to fail them. I don't know how to be a mom. So yeah, basically, I just wanted to try my hardest. And I don't know, I was so young, and all I ever seen my whole life was this pattern of inconsistencies. And so, sadly, it ended up happening to me. Me and my baby daddy, we always talked about, like, we would never be like our parents, and we ended up being that way, We argued a lot, and it was a very toxic relationship. I remember telling him, like, let's try therapy, but he would never, like, really, he was always really hard to get to open up with certain things like therapy. He doesn't believe in therapy. He doesn't believe in depression or mental health. He says you're lazy. There is no mental illness in his eyes, but he didn't believe in therapy or anything like that. We tried going to the church and trying to tell the pastor about our problems, and we were just not sincerely trying, and we were both very young, and we both just didn't grow up, I guess, with, we just, whatever. So, our relationship was really hard because we were not seeing eye to eye, and we were not mutual with certain things. But at the same time, we were so madly in love, and, like, I really do believe, like, if we would have had the proper tools, things could have gotten better. But we didn't have the proper tools. You know, he cheated on me. He did certain things which I was scorned by. I was always faithful to him until I got on the medication. When I got on the opiates, that was when I did not. I cheated on him and with one person, and I definitely, you know, he had cheated on me and he had this pattern, and so I was like, well, I'm just doing it back to him, you know, like, oh well. And I had that kind of mind frame, you know, oh well, you do me wrong, I'm gonna do you wrong. And that was really stupid. I really regretted cheating on him, you know, because I shouldn't have done that. I didn't know, like, you don't cheat on somebody that you love. You don't want to hurt somebody. Even if they hurt you, you don't want to hurt them. It doesn't make it right. And I didn't know that then. I was young and I was dumb. And, well, not dumb, but I just immature, you know. And I was just following patterns that I had been taught. So, anyways, I ended up working at this caregiving job, and like I said, I would work 16-hour shifts. I would work night shift, and they would always call me. They knew to call Jamie if you needed your shift covered, because I would never say no. I'm a big people pleaser, and I say, okay, sure, I can cover your shift. Oh, it's okay that I just worked 12, but yeah, sure. And back then, you could just work as long as freaking, like, dude, I worked like 18 hours, man, and I would be so tired going home and not really getting any sleep because the boys were small. And so I moved my mom in with me, and my mom was an alcoholic, but I moved her in with us to watch the kids, and it worked really well for a while. When Rose was sober, Rose was amazing. She was amazing. But when she drank, oh man, it was all bad. So I moved my mom in with us, and she was doing good for a while, you know. My uncle ended up getting really sick, her brother, and he ended up passing away, and that made my mom relapse. She couldn't handle, like, losing her brother, so she ended up relapsing, and it was just real bad because then my mom was, you know, on alcohol, and my mom knew that I cheated on him, and my mom was so pissed. She was like, what the F is wrong with you? Like, she told him, and I was so mad at my mom for telling him. But yeah, she told on me, and she was like, you whore, you know, how could you do that? You're messing up your family. And my mom was right, you know, I shouldn't have done that. And I don't know, it was a really stupid decision. I wasn't thinking, but basically I ended up going really downhill after I got hurt at work. So I was a caregiver, and there's something called a Hoyer lift, and we had a patient who was a stroke patient, and he was paralyzed on one side, and I lifted him up by myself all the time, always by myself, because nobody would ever be there. If you work in caregiving, I don't know why, dude, but every caregiving job I've ever freaking had has always been the same. Shitty ass people who don't give a F about these people, and it just horrible. I mean, God, you can't even go to management because they don't care either. It was crazy, dude, doing doubles and triples and working your butt off for people who don't give a F about you, but because of the people. You know, I did it for the people. So I was taking care of him, and he, one day, like, I always lifted him up by myself. I never used the Hoyer lift because I was always fine by myself. Usually it's always a 2-person job, always. That's the fucking rules. But like I said, they would never have anybody back up. Never. There was always one. There was supposed to be a float, and I was the fucking float, and I was the med tech. I was everything. So it was just me. And there was 4 separate little cottages, and there was one person in each cottage. And you know, night shift is not normally as busy, but in the night shift, you sometimes get the people ready for the day, depending on the person's schedule. And that was my job with this person. My job was in the morning, I'd be there at night till he woke up, and when he would wake up, I'd get him dressed in the morning, and I'd have him ready with his coffee for the next shift, because a lot of these people wouldn't care about them, and so they wouldn't do like I would do. You know what I mean? And so I just did what I did with him. And that day I went to lift him up, and it wasn't his fault, but he would get real scared and he would shake real bad, and he fell on me, and I was under for a while and couldn't reach my walkie-talkie or nothing. And when they finally got to me, it was just not good. So I really injured my back major, and once I injured my back, they put me on opiates, very, very strong ones, and that was it. I went right down. After I was on the medication, I was taking one medication a day, and then boom, next thing you know, I'm taking them like M&Ms. I'm just popping them handfuls. I took so many. People would be like, oh my God, girl, you're gonna... I was like, oh no, I do this all the time. And it was really bad. And I remember just being so bad on this medication, and my mom didn't know what to do because my dad was an H addict, and so she was familiar with opiates and what they do. And you get really sick if you don't have them. And it was a really shitty situation. And so my mom, being the great mother that she is, if I would run out, she'd go to the hospital and she'd say she hurt herself so she could get me more, so that way I wouldn't be sick. And she did that a lot until she couldn't do it anymore. And I remember one day, me and my baby daddy would argue all the time, my son's dad, and he would say, Jamie, please, you're messing up our family. We need you. Please get off of these pills, please. I love you. Please, Jamie. And I remember I told him, no, fuck you. I need my pills. Fuck you. I'm not stopping. This is not a problem. And I'll never forget this day. His sister had moved in with us. Things were real bad. And I actually love his sister. She was a good person, and she didn't do anything wrong. And me and her kind of not really got along that great, but me and his other sister, we were like sisters too. I love his family till this day. His family's my family. My mother-in-law tells me happy birthday every year. She'll come and visit me sometimes. I love his family. I really do, no matter what. But his sister moved in with us, and she had twin girls, and she started rearranging my house, and that made me freaking crazy, because I was like, this is my house. Why is she trying to rearrange my house? And so we argued about that, and I was like, no, you need to tell your sister, she can't be rearranging my house and stuff. And it was just an excuse for me, because I was already so bad on the medication. And my mom told me, she was like, Jamie, we should go to Fresno with your sisters. We don't, we should leave. And I was like, you're right, we should do that. And it was just an excuse for me to try to stay high, because I was so deep into my addiction. And I looked at my boys, and I loved my boys so much. I love my boys, but they were so little and innocent. And they didn't ask for this. And their dad begged me that day. I woke up to him on the phone with my rug dealer. And he said, please stop giving my girlfriend drugs. Please, you're ruining our family. Please, we have kids. Please. I'm gonna call the cops on you. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? I was like, why are you doing that? Dude, what's wrong with you? I need my freaking meds. And I went crazy. We started fighting. He fucking punched my hand through the window. And, I was like, I'll fucking kill myself. And it was all bad. And I ended up packing my car with the boys. and I ended up leaving with my mom. I had just had a fresh prescription of opiates, and I drove from Washington to Fresno, 12-hour drive straight, and I had my kids with me. I took my kids out of their house, out of their home, and made them live in where my sister was, were roaches, and my sister told us she had this wonderful house and everything was great, and when we got there, that wasn't the truth. My sister was squatting and she didn't even have her own house. It was somebody else's that she was stealing roaches, and she was really bad on methamphetamine, and I'll tell you guys more later, but thanks for listening.